Senator Laval.
Mr. President, would you take up previously adopted resolution by Senator Gianaris, and would you read it in its entirety?
Senator Squadron, why do you rise?
Thank you, Mr. President. In accordance with Section 14, Chapter 28 of Masons, I move to suspend the rules. Suspend Rule 7, Subdivision 9 specifically, which interferes with the immediate consideration of a resolution removing Senator Dean G. Skelos from the office of Temporary President and Majority Leader of the Senate and relinquishing the emoluments attached to those two positions.
Senator Squadron, there is no resolution before this House.
Mr. President, I am not offering a resolution at this moment. The fact is that presenting a resolution under Rule 7, Subdivision 9 requires the consideration or the control of the temporary president. In this case, the resolution would censure and remove the temporary president. Therefore, the Senate must consider this resolution outside the normal rules of the Senate, which is why I'm making the motion I'm making, because I believe the temporary president is conflicted in his judgment on this resolution. So,
Senator Squadron,
Mr. President, again, I am making a motion to suspend the rules.
Senator Squadron, I appreciate your effort. We have 5 members who have risen to require that that be placed in writing. We do not have a writing. If you reduce it to writing, certainly, you can present it to the Secretary of the Senate, and we will have the opportunity to take it up in due course.
Mr. President, it has been submitted at writing. It is currently before the desk.
It is not before the desk, Senator Squadron, as it has not been recognized. We are currently on an agenda. Senator Laval has asked us to consider a matter that is properly before this House, and so we will continue with our business as usual.
Mr.
President.
Why do you rise?
Mr. President, the motion by definition is a motion to suspend the rules. So any citing of the rules by you is counter to the purpose of this very motion. So the very purpose of the motion that's been made by Senator Squadron, which, by the way, has been delivered to the clerk and is in the hands of the floor team of the majority, is to suspend the rules to allow us to proceed with the resolution that Senator Squadron referenced.
Senator Gianaris, as I think we've already made clear, it has to be submitted in writing. I understand that it was just walked up. It is not before this House. It will be before this House in due course, which is not now, and it's certainly not when you choose to place something before the House. When it is placed in writing and presented to the Senate, the Secretary of the Senate, it will be taken up in due course. We do have an agenda and we do have an item that is before the House, and so I would ask that we allow this process to proceed.
Mr. President, by what authority are you suggesting that is not properly before this House?
Senator Gianaris, we have a matter that's before the House currently. There is no reason at all to substitute the matter that is currently before this House for any other matter that has not been properly brought before this House. So I will ask Senator Laval to continue, and I will direct the Secretary to read the resolution that is properly before the House.
Mr. President, with due respect, it is not your determination whether it's properly before the House. It's the determination of this body. And I will refer you to Mason Section 282, Subdivisions 1 and 2. A motion to suspend the rules may be made at any time. And for further clarification, a motion to suspend may be made during the order of business of motions and resolutions, which we are currently under. So I ask you again, under what authority are you denying this motion
Senator
when the rules
Gianaris,
make it clear that it's in order at any time?
Senate rules take precedence over Masons. Masons are there as a complement, but certainly not as a substitute. Senator Hannan, why do you rise?
Just making a motion does not wipe out the existing rules of this Senate duly adopted at the beginning of this session. We have those rules, and one must make motions within them. Just making a motion does not suspend them. If the motion is made and adopted, then it would be suspended. But Mr. Generis is in error, and it does not properly lie.
Your point is well made, Senator Hannan. Senator Laval.
Mr. President,
We have a resolution
Mr. President,
before this House
Mr. President,
honoring the
I
memory.
will not allow this body to move forward without taking us
I-
up
Senator
properly
Laval.
under the rules. Senator Hannan's point is not well taken. If there is a rule that is contradictory to Mason's, which you conceded was complementary,
The Secretary,
then that rule would take
the
precedence.
Secretary
not
will
debatable,
read
Senator.
the resolution that is properly before
Under
this
what
House.
rule the chairs
Senator
tonight have
Gianaris.
been given no guidance. There is no Senate rule that tells us we cannot have this
Senator,
motion right now. If there is
I
some,
had
please,
moved
please enlighten us.
so that we could honor your predecessor's memory. I would like the clerk to start reading the resolution.
We have much business, and it is important for me to do that, but this is also important. And if someone can cite me a rule that Senator Hannan or the chair said takes precedence, which I concede, we can move the discussion forward.
Senator Gianaris,
Under what
address the
Senate
chair. Thank you. I appreciate it. There are rules in this House.
Yes, sir.
We do not substitute those rules on a whim.
Under which Senate rule are you denying the ability to consider this motion, Mr.
There's nothing before the House, Senator Gianaris.
Under which
we are
Senate rule?
going in circles. There is nothing
Yes, we
properly
are
before
going in
this
circles,
House.
sir, because you refuse to
Secretary will
recognize a
read.
motion that's properly before.
The
Mr.
Secretary,
President, I appeal the ruling of the chair
There
that
is,
this motion is out of order.
there is nothing for
There
you
is
to
nothing-
appeal, Senator Gianaris.
there is no ruling of the chair, Senator
You have
Gianaris,
ruled
for
this
you.
motion is not in order, have
There
you
is
not, Mr.
nothing
President?
before the House,
That-
Senator
You
Gianaris.
have ruled that the motion is not properly before the House, have you not, Mr. President?
Senator Gianaris,
Have you or have you not ruled?
Senator Gianaris, there is no motion before the House for me to rule on. The Secretary will read.
Mr. President, there is a motion that is in the possession of the clerk and in the possession of the majority. If you want to rule it's out of order, that's your right. We have the
Legislative
right to
resolution
appeal
number
that motion
1773
and have a
by Senator
decision.
Gianaris. Honoring the accomplishments and celebrating the life of former New York State Senator George Honorato. Whereas, it is the sense of this legislative body to recognize and commend those individuals of distinguished purpose whose lives have been committed to the public service and the
Excuse
pursuit
me.
of...
Senator Gianaris, we have been patient. A press release is not a substitute for a proper motion or resolution before this House. You are out of order. We do not have a member of this. We do not have a member of this House that is under indictment.
Well-
I would ask you to sit and allow us to continue with the order of this House
President?
in the proper order that it is before this House.
Mr. President?
You are out of order. Please sit.
Mr. President, I concede that the member I referred to is not under indictment. I apologize for that. That particular member is not under indictment, but others are. Now, will you let us or let us not consider a motion that was properly placed before the House pursuant to Mason's, which is not contradictory to the Senate rules? If you want to rule against us, that is your right, Mr. President, but then we have the right to appeal and be heard on the appeal, and that's all I'm asking.
Whereas, it is the sense of this legislative body to recognize and commend